If Nietzsche were alive today, he wouldn't be glued to his phone, overanalyzing unread texts or spiraling into emotional loops over someone pulling away. He'd be the calmest person in the room, watching it all unfold, quiet, composed, and 10 steps ahead. Why? Because Nietzsche didn't just study human nature. He saw through it, especially when it came to power, emotion, and relationships. He never saw women as enemies or mysteries to solve. He saw the game, and more importantly, he refused to play it blindly. Most men don't realize they're already playing and losing. They get tested, manipulated, and emotionally triggered, and they call it love. But Nietzsche saw the traps over 100 years ago. He warned, if you don't understand how power works, especially in relationships, you'll get controlled and never even realize it's happening. This video isn't about blaming women. It's about opening your eyes. Because once you see what Nietzsche saw, everything changes. You stop reacting, you start leading, and you move through life with quiet confidence and unshakable clarity. Rule 1. He who needs nothing has the most power. Nietzsche believed true power begins the moment you stop needing it from others, especially from women. Most men wear their need like a badge of honor. They crave validation, approval, and affection, and they don't even realize they're wearing chains. Emotional prisoners, begging to be chosen. But the man who doesn't need is different. He's free, and that makes him dangerous. Because the moment a woman senses you don't need her to feel whole, something shifts. She loses control over you. That's when the dynamic flips. You stop chasing. She starts wondering. Nietzsche's Übermensch wasn't just a symbol of strength. It was about mastery, emotional mastery, quiet power, the kind that doesn't beg, doesn't negotiate, and never collapses under pressure. Need her, and she owns you. But walk your path, and she'll want to follow. Not because you asked, but because she feels it. This isn't about being cold. It's about being grounded. When you stop needing, you start leading. Rule 2. Never argue emotionally. Rise above the chaos. Nietzsche understood something most men still haven't grasped. In a storm of emotion, the one who stays calm wins. Women don't test you logically. They test you emotionally. They'll push buttons, stir the pot, create tension, not out of cruelty, but out of instinct. Why? Because reaction equals control. But Nietzsche warned, never step into that fire. The moment you argue emotionally, you've already lost your center. You've joined the chaos. And now, you're burning in it. The man who remains still, he observes, listens, but doesn't flinch. That's not passivity, that's dominance. When she yells, you're silent. When she spirals, you hold your ground. And in that stillness, she realizes you can't be shaken. That clarity, that restraint, it's rare, it's powerful, it's magnetic. Let others drown in drama. You rise above it. Rule 3. Own your shadow, or she will use it against you. Nietzsche said it plainly. We all have a shadow. The parts of ourselves we hide, deny, or run from. The insecurities, the wounds, the regrets. And here's the truth. What you ignore, others will weaponize, especially in relationships. A woman, consciously or not, will test you. She'll poke at your past, your soft spots, your shame, not out of evil, but to see, to feel, to know if you're real or if you'll collapse when touched. Most men react. They break, they bleed. But the man who's already faced his demons, who's looked them in the eye and said, I see you, that man becomes untouchable. She brings up your worst moment. You don't flinch. You've been there. You've made peace with it. That's your armor. When you own your flaws, no one can use them against you. That's not just psychological, that's spiritual. Nietzsche's strength didn't just come from intellect. It came from radical self-awareness. Know your shadow. Embrace it, or it will control you from the dark. Rule 4. Don't compete for her attention. Nietzsche didn't believe in chasing attention. He believed in transcendence. That means, don't lower your worth by trying to stand out in someone else's eyes, especially not a woman's. When you try to impress, win, or outperform other men for her, you've already lost. You've made her the prize, and yourself the beggar. But the man who's chasing his potential, who's locked into his growth, his vision, his discipline, he doesn't need to chase. He becomes magnetic. Other men are out there posting, performing, pleading to be noticed. But you're just doing the work, building yourself, living your purpose. And here's the paradox. The man who chases his path instead of a woman, he's the one she can't stop thinking about. Be the man who outgrows his past, not the one who tries to outperform his peers. That's how you win without even playing. Rule femme. Be dangerous, but controlled. Nietzsche didn't worship weakness, but he didn't glamorize recklessness either. He respected danger under control. Not the man who lashes out in rage, but the one who could and doesn't. That's real strength. That's presence. Women aren't drawn to chaos. They're drawn to the edge, to danger held back, to power that simmers but never explodes. The nice guy gets ignored. The erratic one gets rejected. But the man with quiet danger, the one who walks like a weapon but never unsheathes it, he's unforgettable. She knows you could destroy, but you won't. Not because you're weak, but because you've mastered yourself. This balance of fire and control, it's rare. And it's addictive. You're not a pushover. You're not the tyrant. You're the man she senses could crush her, but never would. And that mystery, that tension, that's desire, that's power. Rule 6. Don't explain yourself. Nietzsche believed that the second you start justifying your actions, especially when no one asked, you've already surrendered power. Explanations, when unnecessary, often scream insecurity. And yet today, so many men over-explain. They over-text, they over-apologize, all in a desperate attempt to keep the peace or to win someone's approval. But here's the truth. Real power doesn't explain. It simply is. A grounded man doesn't need validation for every move he makes. He doesn't rush to fill the silence with reasons or stories. He acts. He leads. The world either keeps up or gets left behind. That includes her. You don't owe an emotional essay when she asks why you didn't text back. I was busy. That's it. No apology. No justification. Just presence. She feels that certainty, that stillness, that lack of need. It's rare. It's magnetic. So stop trying to be understood. Start being who you are. Nietzsche knew, the less you speak, the more people lean in. Power whispers, never pleads. Rule 7. Never chase. Let her be the one to wonder. Nietzsche's strength wasn't about being pursued. It was about being the pursuer, in life, in vision, in purpose. Too many men today hand over their crown. They try to be picked, be noticed, be liked. But when you do that, you lose your edge. You become one of many, another face in the crowd. That's not a strength. That's scarcity. The real man builds a life so focused, so purposeful, so solid, that he becomes the center of gravity. He doesn't orbit her. She orbits him. Your time becomes valuable. Your attention becomes a reward. And your presence? Earned. You don't need to chase her. You build your kingdom. She'll come knocking on the gates. Because when you stop running after her, she starts wondering, why isn't he chasing me? Why is he so calm, so grounded? Why can't I stop thinking about him? That's the shift, from needy to needed, from follower to force. Nietzsche knew, the man who walks with purpose doesn't beg to be followed. And yet, he is. Rule 8. She can test you, but you cannot break. Nietzsche knew life would test you. And relationships? Even more so. Not because she's cruel, but because she needs to know you're solid. Women test for strength the way fire tests steel. It's not personal, it's primal. She'll challenge you, question you, stir your emotions, not to destroy you, but to see if you'll flinch, to see if you'll lose yourself. Most men fail the test. They overreact. They try to prove. Or worse, they collapse. But the strong man, he doesn't play the game. He stays calm. She says, "You're not enough." You smile, not to provoke, but because you're unshaken. That smile, It's not weakness. It's power. It tells her, you don't define me. Nietzsche believed real strength wasn't about shouting. It was about stillness. And when you pass the test without even reacting, you earn her respect. Let her test. Let the fire rise. You stay centered. Because real power doesn't explode. It endures. Rule 9. Choose respect over affection. Nietzsche didn't care about being liked. He cared about being respected. Affection is easy. It's soft. It's fleeting. But respect? That's earned. That's lasting. Most men chase smiles, compliments, and validation. They think that means connection, but it doesn't. A woman might like you today and ghost you tomorrow. But if she respects you, she rethinks you. She remembers you. Respect creates weight. It creates polarity. Nietzsche taught that the man who values respect over approval walks a higher path. He doesn't tolerate disrespect just to keep the peace. He doesn't bend to be liked. He stands firm, and the world either adjusts or walks away. She might not always like you, but she'll never forget you, because respect plants deeper roots than charm ever could. Be liked, and you're a moment. Be respected, and you're a memory. Rule 10. Use silence as a weapon. Nietzsche saw silence not as weakness, but as a strategy. In a world full of noise, the man who can hold his tongue, he holds the high ground. Most men talk too much. They explain, defend, plead, hoping that words will save them. But the more you speak, the more you give away. The more you chase clarity, the more you leak power. Silence, when intentional, is sharp. It creates tension, mystery, presence. When she expects an argument and you give her stillness, the battlefield is now hers, and she's losing. Because silence forces her to sit with herself, to reflect. And it tells her, I don't need to fight to win. Nietzsche knew, silence is the language of mastery. It's the stillness of a man who knows his worth. So next time you're challenged or provoked, don't reach for words, reach for stillness. The loudest man is rarely the strongest. The one who holds silence, he holds control. Rule 11. Stay grounded in truth. Nietzsche believed in truth. Not emotional illusions, not momentary feelings. Truth, as in something solid, something unshakable. But too many men lose themselves in emotional storms, especially in relationships. Women tend to live in emotional realities. What feels true in the moment is true, until it isn't. One moment, you're her hero. The next, you're selfish, toxic, or distant. If you're not grounded, you'll get swept up in that. You'll argue, unapologetically, doubt yourself. But if you stay rooted in truth, you stay in your power. She says you're too focused on work. You know you're building something important. That's not selfish. That's the purpose. You're not ignoring her. You're honoring your mission. Nietzsche's strength came from clarity, from being the mountain in the middle of a storm. You don't fight emotion. You just don't lose yourself in it. Truth doesn't need to convince. It just stands. Be that man. Be that mountain. Rule 12. Don't get pulled into her world. Nietzsche believed the highest form of man creates his world. But too many men? They give it all up the moment a woman enters the picture. They change. They shift. They adjust. They lose their direction trying to fit into her life, her pace, her moods. And just like that, they lose the very thing that made them attractive in the first place. But the man with a vision? He doesn't follow. He leads. He doesn't seek permission. He builds his world, brick by brick, with or without applause. He doesn't beg her to stay. He simply lives his truth. And if she wants to be part of that world, she will rise to meet it. If not, she fades. But he doesn't bend. Nietzsche's Übermensch wasn't a reactor. He was a creator. You don't chase her reality. You invite her into yours. Your life becomes her gravity. And if it doesn't, you keep walking. Rule 13. Always be willing to walk away. Nietzsche preached the kind of strength that doesn't cling, doesn't beg, and never fears the exit. Most men get emotionally attached far too quickly. They invest everything into one person, so much so that the idea of walking away feels like losing oxygen. That's not love. That's dependence. That's bondage. Real power is the ability to stay calm when you're staring down the possibility of loss. To say, I care, but I'll never sell my soul to stay. The strongest man isn't the one who gets her. It's the one who could lose her and still sleep like a god. That's not cold. That's clarity. That's self-respect. When a woman senses you don't need her to feel complete, she suddenly sees your value double. Why? Because you're not trapped in emotional scarcity. You're choosing her, not chasing her. And that's rare. Nietzsche's highest ideal wasn't a man afraid of being alone. It was a man who thrived in solitude. So make this your mindset. Stay if it aligns. Walk if it doesn't, and never beg to be kept. The man who can walk away holds the power. The man who can't has already lost it. Rule 14. Don't try to change her. Nietzsche warned against trying to fix people. He didn't believe in moralizing or molding someone into your perfect idea of who they should be. He believed in clarity, observation. Most men waste time trying to make a woman see the light, trying to explain, justify, fix. But here's the truth. You don't change people. You watch them. You observe patterns. You trust what you see over what you're told. She says she values honesty, but you catch her hiding things. She says she wants peace, but drama follows her everywhere. She says she's loyal, but her actions show something else. You don't argue. You note it, and you adjust accordingly. That's a strength. That's awareness. That's power. No need to fight. Just observe, then decide. Does her behavior align with your values? Is she compatible with your path? Nietzsche's higher man wasn't emotionally reactive. He was wise. He watched long enough for truth to reveal itself, and when it did, he moved accordingly. You don't chase potential. You don't cling to illusions. You trust your eyes, your gut, your standards. Because when someone shows you who they are, you believe them. Rule 15. Transcend pleasure. Nietzsche believed the real battle didn't start in the world. It started within. Most men are ruled by their urges. Pleasure, lust, validation, these become their masters. And once that happens, power slips right through their fingers. A man ruled by impulse is predictable. And predictability? That's a weakness. But the man who can rise above those base desires, who can enjoy pleasure but not be controlled by it, that man becomes dangerous. He can smile at temptation and walk past it. Not because he's numb, but because he's free. That calm resistance, that self-mastery, it's rare, and it's magnetic. Women don't just sense hunger, they test for it. And when they find a man who doesn't chase, doesn't drool, doesn't need, it unsettles them, it intrigues them. Nietzsche's ideal wasn't a man who ran from desire, it transcended it. Who could channel that energy into creation, purpose, and discipline? Pleasure fades, but purpose? That builds a legacy. A man who's mastered both desire and restraint becomes unstoppable. Rule 16. She's not the prize. Nietzsche didn't believe in chasing illusions. He believed in becoming something worthy. Too many men pedestalize women. They see beauty and confuse it for value. But beauty is everywhere. Power is not. And the moment you start seeing yourself as the prize, everything shifts. You stop chasing. You start choosing. You stop proving. You start being. She's beautiful? Great. But so what? You're powerful. And power doesn't beg. It selects. It commands. It moves with purpose. That's the difference between a boy and a man. The boy runs after the sparkles. The man builds what shines. You walk like the prize. You talk like the prize. You live like the prize. And suddenly, you don't need to convince anyone. They feel it. She feels it. She follows. Not because you asked, but because you became the path. Nietzsche's Übermensch doesn't wait to be crowned. He becomes the crown. So stop waiting for validation. Stand in it. You're not a contestant. You're the storm. And the storm never chases. The final message. Outsmart, not through hate, but through mastery. Nietzsche never preached hatred. He didn't waste time blaming women. He didn't spiral into bitterness. He turned inward. He refined his mind, strengthened his will, built his life on an unshakable truth. His philosophy wasn't about dominance. It was about transcendence. His mission? Simple, ruthless. Become more than you were yesterday, not by defeating others, but by conquering yourself. The Übermensch doesn't react. He creates. He doesn't chase approval. He earns respect. He doesn't fear tests. He welcomes them as proof of his strength. This isn't about playing games. It's about never being played again. In a world full of followers, Nietzsche stood as a god of his own making. Now it's your turn. Don't fight for the crown. Become it. Let them test you. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. You walk forward, unbothered, unbroken, and unchained.